Yes.
Gosh, that's probably one of the most profound books that you can ever read. Hard to read, but very, 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 very good. I want to read you a couple of things he said. As long as we are not in direct contact with that which transcends the human mind. Okay, I'm reading the Cipher of Genesis, page 58. I'll read that. As long as we are not in direct contact with that which transcends the human mind, the fundamental significance of life escapes us. See, like, kind of pause and think about that. What does Carlo mean when he says that? As long as we are not in direct contact with that which transcends the mind, would you think that he's talking about the spirit? It transcends the mind. It goes above or beyond. In this case, when he's talking about mind, he's referring to the carnal human mind, which that's what he says, human mind. The fundamental significance of life escapes us. But that primordiality invades us as soon as we decipher the first letter of the first schema of the revelation, and the witnessing of it is the part of having it revealed, because after all, the revelation is always there, but for its being witnessed. It's always there, but it's waiting to be witnessed. And what he's referring to here is the first glip in Genesis 1. And what he's referring to is the seed, and within the seed is everything that grows on the tree, or everything that grows on the plant. And the correlation to that is just simply whatever the seed of God is in you. And so therefore the potential of everything that God is either dormant in you or resident in you. And it's there just awaiting, there just to be stirred or whatever. So let me read you another thing that he says. When communication purports to convey the revelation, such ambiguity can only lead to one or another of the multifarious religious interpretations which obstruct the immediate perception of the fact that the very existence of a speck of dust is in very truth the first and the last mystery. Of course, this speck of dust would be, if I'm reading it from Genesis 2:7, the dust made us from the dust, I would refer to afar, which would be the particles of light. If you're made of particles of light, whatever those particles of light is, you are. Or I could say whatever the particles of light is, you is. Because that would be so true. No mystery is greater than any other. The Kabbalah has always known it and has therefore never raised the question as to whether God exists. And of course that's a real good question, because there are some teachings that says that man invented God because man needed God, so man invented God. So man began to invent the character of intelligence. In some respect, that's true. So I'm not throwing stones at that. I'm saying in some respects that's true. How can you prove God? Well, I mean, Jesus' explanation to that would just simply be, what moves the wind, what moves the tree when the wind's blowing through it? Well, that is God, but that we call that spirit. Well, spirit is God. It's not seen, many times not heard, can be there present and not be felt. Can be felt too. So what he's saying here about the Kabbalah, and again, I use this phrase from Job, the second chapter of Job, that instead of me just quoting that, let me read that to you from the book of Job, because it is where the concept or the ideology of Kabbalah and the ancient Hebrew glyphs come from.
Say that again?
Job chapter 2.
No, the sentence before that.
Oh, Kabbalah, the idea behind Kabbalah is where the Hebrew glyphs come from, the Hebrew alphabet. It's where it's from Kabbalah. It's from the idea of Kabbalah. And a lot of people don't get Kabbalah. I mean, most people don't get Kabbalah unless you're a Kabbalist. And so here is where it comes from. This is where that Hebrew word comes from. It's in Job chapter 2 and verse 10. It says, "But he said unto her, You speak as one of the foolish women speaketh." What? And what he was talking about was, she said to Job, "Why don't you curse God? You know, if all this has happened." And so it's not that's not something that's literally taken place where all those horrible and terrible things happen. That's a metaphorical or an allegorical story. And within it's a lot of things that happens to you and me. Things that happen to you, good or bad. And I'm sure if we were all to take the opportunity to say, yeah, I've had this good happen to me, I've had this bad happen to me, deserving or not deserving, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, have you ever had something happen to you and you didn't deserve it? You felt, I didn't do anything. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I don't know. I'm not the judge of that. So he said, you speak like a foolish woman speaks. What shall we, and here's what his answer to this is, shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? In other words, his response is, look, we will receive from the right and the left. We will receive from the right and the left. And then he said, shall we not receive? Well, the word receive right here in Hebrew is kobal. And that's what the word means. Kobal, it means to receive. It's just exactly, if you turn your TV on to a certain channel or station, that's receiving a signal from a satellite or from a dish or from an antenna somewhere, right? Isn't it? And you would, if you turn that on this afternoon to watch the golf game, that's what you would expect to receive. Is that not correct? Well, in Kabbalah, it's simply saying there is a wave of energy. You can call it a thought. You can call it a seed. You can call it anything you would like. There are many things that we would try to fill in the blank. We can call it light. That would be a thing I would call it. I would personally try to call it light or energy. There's light coming from the sun. There's light coming from the moon. Have you ever seen a moon so full at night you could just drive your car without headlights? Of course you can say, well, that's reflected light. Well, if we can understand that what spirit is light, it's energy, it's fire. Those are things. And so that light, that fire, that energy is emanating. In other words, it's constantly coming forth. What is it saying? What is it doing? Well, it's saying a lot. It's doing a lot. It's doing everything. But then there's the light of the moon that's reflective. Well, if I were to try to use typologies, I would take three analogies there. I would take the sun, I would say it's like spirit or God. I would take the moon, I would say it's like soul. And I would take the earth and say it's like body. And the body or the earth is here as a receiver of the reflection of both of those energies. Period. And so, but being on earth, we can corrupt much of what that light is sending forth or sending to us. We can and we do. And so this is a lot about what Carlos Sars is talking about when he says what he's saying right here about the revelation. And in Kabbalah, let me put this on the board for us. In Kabbalah, you have this is called Keter, the crown. This is called Chokmah, which is called wisdom. This is the crown. And this is called understanding. Okay? The crown, this is the sun or God. Wisdom, this is male. Or you could say man. Or we could call it like he calls it in Genesis 2, we call it Esh. E-S-H, Esh, which equals fire. Well, over here, we can call this female. It's the same thing. I mean, generally, if you want, generally, when you're growing up, if you wanted grace and mercy, you didn't go over to your daddy. You went to mom. Why? Because mama is more sympathetic. Mama's more understanding. Is that not the way we use? So see, the simplicity in this and the wisdom in this is not hard to grasp. It's not hard to try to get it and try to understand it. And so, and when you encapsulate all of this within one circle and knowing that all of this represents the triune aspect of God, or the tripod of God, we could say it. We could say it's Father, Mother, Child. It's saying the same thing. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. I think that's how we do it in Christianity. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But knowing that this is a pattern, or this is a model, or this is a blueprint. And so this pattern, this model, and this blueprint constantly unfolds itself. And to get the pattern and the blueprint correct would be go back to Genesis, because that's where the foundation is at. That's where what we call the beginning is at. So that beginning, I can understand, that's where my birthing was at. That's where I entered into the dimension called space-time. The earth, right? At my birthing, I came here. Did I come with a program? I came with a program. Now, my work in life is to know my program. If I can't find my program, what would I do? I would wander around in the wilderness, as we do. And that's not right or wrong. I guess it would just be confusing, maybe more confusing than not. Because I'm not sure what my direction is. So I don't know if I need to go north, south, east, or west, or stay still for a while. But if I can understand that I came with a design, I came pre-programmed, I came preloaded, and if I can tap into that, and if I can begin to find my mission, you know, there's so many words that we can try to fill in that blank, find my mission, my purpose, my design, then out of that I would experience fulfillment. So in Kabbalah you have this tripod that sits on the top of this, and this, I interpret this also as my stick man. And so in Kabbalah, that's called the tree of life. And you have these are called sephirots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's sephirots. In Kabbalah, you have 22 glyphs in the Hebrew alphabet, on the base alphabet, with the 5 finals that's added to represent the 5 physical outward senses. The 2 inward senses are included in the 22 glyphs. The intuitive nature, which is one of your senses, and the experiential part of your body, which is one of your senses. It's inward. So they are included in the 22. The other 5 are the 5 Hebrew 5 finals. Give you a total of that number Steve was working with, 27. And Gematria 27 would equal 9, etc. Okay. So, here's what I want you to, this is something that's here, there's something here that's seen but not seen. Let me say it this way. It's not seen, but it is understood. So you have to go through this pattern to get, you have to go from the crown to wisdom to understanding to get that, and it's called, it sits right there, it's a window, and in Hebrew it's called Da'at, D-A-A-T, Da'at. And what it means is revelation. Revelation. The revelation you get from the understanding of the things. If you're confused, it's hard to get to the revelation. You can't hardly get to there with confusion. So the revelation, you can call it many different things. You can call it divine intervention. Every one of us is susceptible to that. It's like I was asked a question yesterday about the practices and disciplines. I said, well, for me, one of the greatest disciplines that I would have in my life would be meditation through breath, through just breathing, just a little practice of breathing. It doesn't have to be lengthy or long. It's a practice that I practice. It's just something that I do. I mean, Eastern religions teach it in many different ways, whether it's Buddhist or Hindu, or Zoroastrianism, or et cetera, et cetera. They teach it and they add vocal sounds to it. You know, you can take a inhale through the nose, and when it comes out, you can do it om, like om. And a lot of people do that. And there is nothing wrong with that. In many references, you go back into ancient Hebrew and Kabbalah, that was a practice that they practiced. As a matter of fact, if you go back deep enough into Kabbalah, Kabbalah filtered over into Japan, and in Japan it became Zoroastrianism, which is just another picture of Kabbalah, or of Hebrew, same thing. It's sort of like if we begin to look at it, I would say that we would see it as a divine science that's really all across the globe, maybe in different methodologies or whatever. Like Ginger had a book she was reading about the culture of the Cherokee Indians, and some of them were saying that part of that culture, which you can overlay a lot of that with the ancient Hebrew, a lot of that culture they're saying goes back 50,000 years. Now me, I don't have any problem with that. I embrace that wholeheartedly and would say it could go back 250,000 years. So, and I realize that's probably started for a lot of folks, but to me that's not. I think that societies have expanded and shrank to nothing many times. I don't know how, but this is a very, very, very key and important thing. It's not, many times when you see the Kabbalistic tree of knowledge, they'll never show that. Some of them will show that, and they'll do it just exactly like that because it's there, but it's not there. And for me, if I'm doing my stick man, I will do the same thing, and I would put it right here, and I would say it's the heart. It's the heart that begins to open up and it begins to see. If you'll notice, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so I can lay my stick man in the tree of life easily as I begin to see the tree of life unfold in the first 3 chapters of Genesis, which lays the foundation, which is the seed. And got to come back to what I just said. In the seed is the idea and the design of what the seed is. You personally, in your physical body, are the manifestation of that design of God's seed for you. So you can't not be what God has designed you to be. You are that. You may not be tapping the greatness of your potential, which we're probably not. Now, I would like to experience that.
Absolutely. There's this affirmation I've been listening to lately in the background when I'm at work sometimes, and one of the lines in this guy's affirmation is that our life is like seeds, and you plant the seeds, and you can grow flowers or you can grow weeds.
Yeah, there you go. And there's nothing wrong with the flower or the weed. One has glory, and the other has less glory. I believe we found that kind of an affirmation in the book of Hebrews, didn't we? I mean,
yeah, you take a
some's
weed.
to honor and some's not to honor.
You take a weed, you can chop those things down, and they still live for days.
They do.
You know, and they
And they'll
will
come
go
right back
through
up, won't they?
concrete, all kinds of stuff. A weed is very strong. We need to be more like a weed.
Yeah, in that respect,
Yeah.
with the tenaciousness of that. Maybe that's what the weed is there to teach us. Maybe the weed is there to show us on the positive aspect of a negative energy, the tenacity of that thing.
They don't
Because
need
we don't have
nobody's
that.
love to grow.
Yeah, they'll grow anywhere. They'll grow through concrete. They'll grow in the hardest of places. I mean, you know,
The
it's
more
just,
you want to get rid of them, the more they grow.
you know, when you go out into the mountains and you just look at nature, you will see trees. I've seen big trees growing out of little cracks in huge rocks. Now that's phenomenal. I mean, it's just totally, you sit there and you can just drink that in and look at it, and it just has abundance of revelation. Well, if we could look at that and draw that in nature for ourselves, And so what I would like to say is the body is just a shell. It's just what we have. And I wanted to get to that. He says that here. I wanted you to hear it or see it. He said, no mystery is greater than any other. The Kabbalah has always known it and has therefore never raised the question as to whether God exists. For those of Kabbalah, Abraham, Moses, or Jesus, the unknowable, unknown is a presence. You get that? How do we tap into the unknown and unknowable so that it becomes presence? Through Dayat, through revelation, through the opening of wisdom and understanding. Now, you have to hear this. Wisdom is not necessarily easy to get. Sometimes it may require discipline and study. Understanding will come out of it as a result of it, because you will become, the more wisdom you gain, the more sympathetic you'll be, the more compassionate. You will have less stones to throw. Because you'll be like Jesus. He said, if you got a rock, throw it. If you don't, drop it. And that's what happens for us. So what I'm saying is, none of this just falls on you. It comes, it's there as a result of the practices of nature, which is highly disciplined. It comes to the thing, and sometimes I guess if we get into discipline, they say, oh, that's just too strict, that's too hard. It's not. If we would remove ourselves from thinking that and submit ourselves under this. Listen to what he says here. He says, for those of Kabbalah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, the unknowable, unknown is a presence. If you get to thinking about that, you realize that this doorway or window is present. It's here now.
Isn't the wisdom and understanding like the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge you couldn't eat
Yes,
in the center of the
absolutely.
garden?
It's the same thing.
It's just the same.
It's the same thing. And all I done with the stick man, instead of putting it like this, is I just run it in a straight line. It's just one tree. See, and you can say, up here, this part of the tree is this is the limbs, and this is the root. Or, if you want to look at it upside down, you can say, no, actually, these are the roots, and this is the tree. Now, do it that way in perspective of thinking about this is the spirit. And so if I reverse that and I stretch my roots out up into the spirit, guess what I'm going to do? I'm stretching my roots into the unknown, the unknowable, and from there I'm drawing presence. You say, but it's the same tree. It's just one tree. Tree of life, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It takes both trees to live.
There's one tree standing on one side or the other side of it. It's just one tree.
It exists one tree.
I can look at it from the north side and the south side.
Yep.
It's still just one tree.
That's it. Now he says right here, the knowing of that presence is the unknown. I'll read that to you again. See, it's not a book that you can just read. And people that just go through, I didn't understand it. I said, I perfectly well know what you mean. There's some pages in this book I've been stuck on for 10 years. He says, again, he says, the knowing of that presence is the unknown. There is no other revelation. It is therefore and above all necessary to reject all interpretations, explanations, creeds, and dogmas, all faiths and moral laws, all traditions, philosophies, and theologies, so as to allow the unknown to operate directly in your mind.
Hallelujah.
You got to just admit that's some deep penmanship. I mean, it's like there's some things that I know that some people write that they didn't write. Their hand just happened to be an instrument. And that's just all there was to it. They didn't write it.
That's
It was
what,
written through them.
that's what Wayne said about most of what he.
Oh, yeah. I know he said when he did that whole series on Excuses Be Gone, he said it wrote him.
Yeah.
He did not write that. He was a channel. He said it wrote through him. He said it just flowed right out of him. With ease. And it's a profound teaching. Same thing is true with Madame Blavatsky and the Secret Doctrine, which is a very difficult piece of material to read because you're looking at two huge volumes of book that's almost encyclopedic in themselves. And not only that, she has a grasp of words and usage of words, but she also discovered or talked about things and revealed things and shared things that she did not even have the ability to have access to or to have ever read. And yet now, through the computer and scientifically, you can go back and validate what she said. That has to be the unknown, making itself present and known. Hallelujah. Well, that's where we're going. That's where we're designed to be. I mean, if we live like that, as we begin to live like, I keep trying to correct myself. When I catch myself saying if, that's always a negative thing. Say, that probably won't ever happen, if it ever does. I'm trying to, and you help me do that. You raise your hand and you say, as we do that. I'm putting it in a more present term because we are doing it. We are going to do it and we're doing it. As a body, as a fellowship, as a group of people. Because we have opened up a vortex in this place here, in this arena in North Georgia, wherever. We've opened a vortex here that we have an open line. We don't have hindrances, We're not at a place where we can be, as you get the rebuttals you get on Facebook, we don't have anybody up stand up and say, oh no, hell, that's wrong, we don't have that.
I really picture our little gathering here a lot like Emerson, Thoreau, Walcott, Walt Whitman. They were a little group, but how far did they reach?
Well, my goodness.
And that was without Facebook and film. And
you had several large denominations that evolved out of that. Universal, the Universal Church, Scientology.
I mean, you had.
You had some huge, and matter of fact, I think some of those groups are now beginning to have another resurgence. Some of those groups are.
Louisa May Alcott was just a child. Her father was part of that group, and then she wrote of her portrait. But she was standing up for women's rights 75 years before the suffrage movement that even began to say that women had rights in America.
Yeah. So let me read on here. Let me get this. I wanted to read another thing he wrote. It is therefore above all necessary to reject all interpretations, explanations, creeds, dogmas, faiths, moral laws, traditions, philosophies, and theologies so as to allow the unknown to operate directly in your mind. Can you hear that? That is a profound statement simply because of this. Without an open mind, if your mind is locked down on any of the things that he just mentioned, dogmas, traditions, philosophies, laws, moral laws, things that we look at as moral laws, many times can block us from an open mind to receive outside that. And I know that's so true because there are many what are called moral laws of the land that we submit ourselves to that are totally contrary to the truth. I won't go into depth on what all they might be. I might within a different setting, but either way, to allow the unknown to operate directly in our mind. Then thought is free to observe the interplay of life and death and existence because it moves along with it, having shattered its fetters. Isn't that beautiful? The Kabbalah postulates that knowledge is not a formulation, but cosmic energy imparted to your mind. And they, of course, use that by the letter number system. That letter number system is and has that ability to impart that to your mind.
So you don't have to be smart to be wise.
Absolutely, absolutely. You do not. You do not have to. In other words, you do not have to have extreme amounts of formal training. You don't have to have degrees. That's fine if you can, and it's fine if you do. But no, you do not have to have that to have this kind of knowledge, to know the unknown. And what could be greater? I mean, you look back at many of the cultures, they didn't have education and knowledge, couldn't even read. But they had the understanding, and with it they had wisdom.
You said over there that the male is wisdom and ash and fire. All right, you got female as understanding. What is the female? Asha, and then what is the?
Esha, which in Genesis 2, just turn over there real quickly, we actually talked about it some yesterday, and I talked about it here, and it's right here in Genesis 2, verse 23. He says, and Adam said, and of course we have this story so really messed up from traditions and dogmas, but then again, traditions, traditions and dogmas have got us to look at it literally and historically. Now, if we can remove our minds and we can remove the fetters of bondage from literalism and historicity and look at this like that it is a formula or a code and that a treasure, and the only way we're going to get to this treasure is unlock the code. So therefore I look at it and I say, okay, here's a treasure and there's a code to get here to it. And I look at it, and I don't look at it as a literal historical event, but I look at it as a treasure. So now what I've got to do is I've got to find out what does the treasure mean and what's the code to get to it. So here it is, verse 23. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called Esha. Now, what is Esha? Well, in Hebrew, all you have to do is look up the glyph Esha, and you begin to realize it's called the womb, W-O-M-B, of fire. Now, let me ask you a question. Would God or anybody or anything create a womb of fire for no reason whatsoever? Would there be a reason in the design of fire? Absolutely. What is a womb of fire designed for? It's designed for fire. If fire represents the male seed, and this represents the womb, where would be the female egg, is for creativity. And if you can understand that this is the left and right hemispheres of the brain where all this goes on. So then the brain would be the dome, the head, the antenna that's here to receive the signal. It's here to receive. I mean, you know, you've got to realize the energy of the sun or the energy of God or the energy of light, the essence of all of that, is not blocked by this material wall or roof. It's penetrating right through it. It's coming. Sure, the light's reflected from it, but the energy, the vibration goes right through it just like it didn't even exist. It's like it's not even there. So I am constantly being taught to. Do you understand what I mean when I say? Not in a literal sense, but in an energetic sense where God is constantly talking to me. Well, what if I don't have formal education? Does that mean that I've got some kind of a blanket up here and God said, I can't get through it, you ain't got enough education? No. No. God is fire. God is light. The Scripture tells us that. God is the consuming fire, Hebrews 13. God is light, 1 John. Psalms 143, God is the sun. I mean, people want to know what God is. Numbers 19, God is not a man. Well, I can't understand why he would want to fight with that. I just can't understand it. But to remove God from manhood, to remove God from the position of an old gray-headed guy in the sky, that's a difficult thing because religion is embracing that with all of their heart. And I mean, they gonna hold to it until it'd be like prying my cold fingers off my gun. And that's how religion has held on to that. So, but right here, woman, this word woman, now why, you can ask, why did they translate this woman? For me, I don't have a problem with it now because I understand the telling of the story. I'm trying to give some kind of symbolic story to convey this picture of divine truth. So I can just simply say this woman, what is the woman for? She's a birthing machine. She's a sympathetic machine. She's an understanding machine. She's a loving machine. She's a manifest. All of this. So you have light, life, and love. This is how important the female is. This is how important the male is. You can't just take away one, to blend the two, to bring your right and left hemispheres of your brain together, your Esh and your Esha, your male and your female, the creativity, and to tear that middle wall of division down to think he's better than I am, he's more powerful than I am, she's this or she's that. I hate to say it, but sorry to say that when you call your wife or your mother an old bitch, you're calling yourself that. I know that's ugly or disrespectful, but I'm saying don't do that. Don't disrespect yourself by thinking that or doing that. You never should do that. I don't care how good or bad your physical parents were. Respect them anyway. I'm blessed. I had a very wonderful childhood. I had good mom and daddy or whatever. And that's no disrespect. Everybody had a good mom and daddy. They may not have been present totally. Sometimes it seems like things happen and people aren't present the way they could be. Now, I wanted to get to what I'm trying to get to. Three scriptures. I'm just going to do three scriptures here. Genesis chapter 1. Yeah, I want to go to several passages of Scripture. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 2. Okay, verse 2 it says, "And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit." Everybody say the Spirit.
The Spirit.
The Spirit. That's a ruach in Hebrew. Ruach. Ruach can be called breath. It can be called air. It also can be called this. Ruach can be called mind. I want you to think about that. Ruach can be the mind of God, and is. And in the New Testament ideology, that would be called the mind of Christ. But the bad part about that, it never says it was the mind of Christ Jesus. The problem we have is we didn't understand the Gnostic writing of the Apostle Paul. He never referred and wasn't really talking about a literal man named Jesus that he obviously never met, and even though he was contemporary to. Kind of ironic to think about that. Paul always wrote about the Christ. But then they had additions of the Bible in many places added Jesus behind the name or put Jesus in front of the name. And so it was either Jesus Christ or Christ Jesus. And then some people said, well, which one was it? And does it matter? Well, it goes back to the Christ. What is the Christ? The Christ is the God in you that lives you. It's something that's in you. And they had that revelation and understanding in Greek mythology 300, 400, 500 years before there was ever a Jesus. And I realize people don't know that. But when we go and talk about the Spirit of God is universal in the entire universe. There's nowhere that it's not. And so the Spirit that I call, well, my spirit is God's Spirit. It ain't just mine, separated itself from God. God breathes me. I don't breathe God. Well, I rephrase that. I do breathe God as God breathes me. I can't not. So, but we have these teachings and ideas that, well, that's a bad spirit. That's a foul spirit. That's a wicked spirit. If it's spirit, it's spirit. And if it's manifesting in a form that looks darker, would be like the Spirit manifesting at night by the reflection of a moon, which is either a quarter moon there's not a lot of reflection. I don't care, it's still spirit. So I wanted to emphasize that. Then another thing I want you to look at in Genesis chapter 2, and that is verse 7. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Man became a living nefesh. Now then, soul, which is very little understood, I'll do it this way. I'm going to say this is spirit. Soul, very, very little understood. And I can understand simply because soul has become so much, because soul is so much. Because soul is everything and nothing at the same time. Soul is a design that God has designed, that it has the ability to be in dimensions. So it doesn't matter if it's 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional, 6-dimensional, 7-dimensional, 8, 9, 10 dimensions. It doesn't matter what the dimension is. Soul has the ability to be adaptable to that dimension. So soul is a divine design that God's designed. It's called the nefesh. It acts closely connected to the nachesh. And the nachesh got translated serpent when actually it was the spinal column of the human being that was totally energized by the nefesh. So where would your mind be? Where would the mind of God? Spirit can be called mind. I mean, it can be called mind. It's the same thing. It's the mind of God. Well, it's in your heart. And I'm not talking about the thing pumping the blood. I'm talking about your heart, the very core of your being. I would say if you look closer at the core of your being, the further you remove all of the outer shell, you would get to the spinal column that's connected up here, and it does look like a cobra snake. When you have the spinal column just there as a spinal column with all of its little intricate nerves going everywhere coming from the brain, it does look like a cobra snake. It really does. So snake then just becomes an analogy, a type. I mean, you know, it's just like that's the Hebrew Beth or Veth, V-A-T-H. In Hebrew, actually, it's Bath, Bait. But that is a symbol. But what that symbol equals is a house, a container. Something that contains. What is the house and what is the container for? See, that's just a symbol. It's a sign. If we can grasp that, we can understand these things clearer. We will begin to see the symbol or the sign is pointing into that which the thing is. So the soul, the spirit, then the soul as the heart, the core of the being. So when you're talking about the soul, or we're talking about the soul, we're talking about the core of the being. And then go with me to Deuteronomy chapter 28. Deuteronomy chapter 28, and look at verse 4 with me. Deuteronomy 28 verse 4. Well, let's just read it from verse 1. And it will come to pass, verse 1, that if you will hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord your God, to observe and to do all of his commandments, which I command you this day, that the Lord your God will set you on high above all the nations of the earth, and all these blessings will come upon you and overtake you, and it shall hearken unto the voice, if you hearken unto the voice of the Lord your God. Blessed shall you be in the city, and you'll be blessed in the field. Blessed shall be the fruit of your body. And then I'm going to put body right here. And of course, when I'm talking about the body, I'm not just referring to the lower extremity from your adrenal gland down, because this is the foundation of your physical being. So when I'm talking about the body, I'm talking about the whole being. But when I'm taking it in a three-part, just like this is three parts, light, life, and love. I'm taking this, light, life, and love. Same thing, I'm doing the same thing. But you incorporate the whole. If I'm talking about the spirit, I'm not just talking about your head and your upper chakras. I'm talking about the whole body. If I'm talking about the soul, I'm not just talking about the heart, because again, the core, I'm talking about the whole body. If I'm talking about the body, I'm talking about the whole body. Now this is the place I wanted to get to, and I wanted you to see something. And if you will, go with me to the book of Romans, the 4th chapter, the book of Romans, the 4th chapter. All of those places that I just showed you in the Old Testament were where these words, spirit, soul, and body, were first used. That's just the first places they were used in the Old Testament scriptures. Yet they symbolize this tripart being that you are, because everybody's a spirit, soul, and body. Everybody's a tripart being. But I want you to see this. Romans 4:19. It says, and be not weak in faith, and consider not his own body. Now you remember the story, don't you? Talking about Abraham and Sarah, and the ideology behind this was that he's too old to do what seems like God's asked him to do. Remember, that's a story. It's not true. It's not literal. She didn't really give birth to a kid when she's 90 years old. Not that that's not possible. Because they say that there are some of those masters in the mountains, in the Himalayas, that are 100, 110, 115, 120 year old. That's father and children. Now, I'm not sure that they're getting 70, 80, 90 year old women pregnant, but I'm not sure who they got pregnant, but I'm saying their functional abilities is still there. Okay? Now, watch what this says in verse 19. And being not weak in faith, he considered not his own body. He didn't consider his own body. Now, this word in Greek is soma. Soma. And I see this a lot, S-O-M-A, soma. And I see it a lot with very intelligent people using this, referring to the body. And now go with me to the book of Revelation. So now we've gone from Genesis to Revelation. So we've covered the whole thing. So we should call this the teachings of the whole thing. Revelations chapter 18. And I'll close with this one, verse 13. These are not mistakes, neither. These are not misprints when you look at them in the original language or the original tongue. It may be misprinted sometimes the way they translate things, but these verses are not misprints. Verse 13, Revelation chapter 18, and verse 13, it says, and cinnamon, and odors, and ointments, and frankincense, wine, oil, fine flour, wheat, beast, sheep, horses, chariots, and slaves. Slaves. Y'all see that word, slaves? That word slaves is this word. Soma. Now I will ask you a question. Why would Paul, the Revelator, call the body slave, or call the word soma slave, and Paul in Romans called the body the body? Is it the same thing? Yes, that is where we have so much confusion. The body was never intended to be the master over anybody. The body was given. The body is given. It's a gift of God. The body is the visible manifestation of God as a slave, simply to say, better understood, a servant. What has happened is we have made the servant the master of the house of ourselves. And we all are in that. We're all, I'm in it. Everybody on the earth is in it, because we have allowed tradition, religion, and dogmas, beliefs, to get everything bass backwards. And how? And if we reverse all of that and we begin to realize that the unknown is supposed to be made known in my body, house, temple, slave. And not for my slave to be master over my unknown, saying I don't know it.
I have a side note that I had written that said, you know, and it's pointing towards slaves, and it says, we serve our body rather than serve that that's inside us.
Yes, there you go.
Man, you're wise, girl.
Yes, there you go. I mean, and that's it. And it's always been revealed in ancient Kabbalah. That's what Carlos Sars is so passionate about writing, about the things that he tried to unveil with just the few books that he wrote. They're profound. The books that he wrote, the resurrection of Jesus. God, Rev Yushia is who he calls it. He understood it was a typology. He understood that it was a beautiful story. And he understood the power and the intent of that story. I never want to take away from the power and the intent of that story. Because it is. However, I do not want to take away from the power and the intent of telling the story of Krishna. Ooh, now I'm in trouble. You mean I can tell the story of Krishna as equally and powerful as I can the story of Jesus? Yes, it's the same story. Both born of a virgin, both went in ministry at 30, both had 12 disciples, both lived and died for the suffering of the humankind. Same story. Different person's name. Why? It's the story of you. The suffering and the final death is the surrender of your physical body to be the slave of your spiritual higher man. That's where it's at. The suffering that you and I have to face is to make this thing surrender, because by God, it don't want to. It don't. It just don't want to quit. It don't want to quit. It won't give up. Our mind don't. I'm just talking about me. I ain't talking about y'all. I'm talking about me this morning. I'm pointing to me. Pointing to me. I'm pointing to my soma. My soma. And bringing it to that place where it surrenders to the unknown and allows me to go through the window, goes through this beautiful window called Revelation. Hallelujah. So, we can go out and do it now, can't we?
That's right.
All right, anybody, anything else?
Yeah, I have a song.
Oh, you got us a song. Wonderful. Hallelujah.
You've heard this before. Yeah. There is a song in you. There is a song in me. We are that song. We are that life. In everything we do, it is just what we say. It isn't just what we do. It is our life that's become our song, and creation is renewed. For we are a many-membered son that is joined to him in love. The veil is getting thin when we find we all dwell in him. For life is him and him in us, and we in him and him in me is a continual community, a many-membered band. For this is our race, and this is our face. We are that one that dwells in all, and everyone before the fall. So, all dwell in me from behind the veil set free, which is our image, and it is divine. And community is formed, and the Son of God is born. Yes, the Son of God is born. Hallelujah. We will surrender to our higher self,
Amen.
Which is our true self. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Thank you, Father.
Amen. Glory.
You light my fire.
Hey, let's start